This is the ISG Digital Dish.
Welcome to Digital Dish, a podcast for women's voices and perspectives in the digital world. We interview women in all industries because digital affects them all. As hosts, we want to share our passion and humor about the digital world we're part of, and we each bring a unique perspective and view from women in all parts of business. You're going to hear topics ranging from technical to organizational challenges, anything that speaks to how women are tackling issues to improve their environment.
I'm Jeannie Cuff. I have a deep curiosity on how women approach their careers in digital, and I'd love to hear their perspective on what they do and how they think about the careers. And of course, talking to smart women is fun.
I'm Lois Coatney, and I love hearing these interviews and bringing both a historical view and a future perspective to those interviews. It's so great to have such a variety of women who do so many things in their digital careers.
And I'm Julie Fernandez. I have a human resources perspective, and I really like to think about how these discussions affect people and organizations.
Together, we wanted to make sure smart women and their point of views were being heard.
Okay, another session of the Digital Dish. Welcome, everyone. Today, we have this really great woman, Mary Patry. She is an executive coach, and she comes from IT. And so, of course, in our pre-interview, we geeked out a little bit on that. But I was just really happy to talk to her and hear her point of view and how her real passion is getting people from a middle management role into executive roles. And just like the whole discussion about moving from hard skills, like you reach a technical level of expertise, and then how do you become a manager, a director, a leader? And Julie, you and I were just talking about this. So that can apply to a lot of different roles.
Yeah, it can. It really can. I'm sitting here thinking, that's been the progression forever, right? To move up through the ranks of the hard skills and then need to get to that executive layer. And yet with things being agile today and fast-moving, high-paced change, I can't help but wonder if at some point in time in the future, it'll be the reverse, where folks are jumping in and they have this, adaptability or this ability to be flexible and fungible and are lacking some of the underlying hard skills. But I don't know, that's just a weird thought that came to mind.
Well, I'm interested about this interview because honestly, I think as leaders, we become even more isolated today than we've been in the past, because I think in the past, we've been able to work with our teams quite closely. You get to see people, you get to talk to other leaders frequently and just, in a very informal way. And today it's really hard to do that. As a leader, you look for peers and you look for people to bounce ideas off of, probably even outside your own company, because it can be a little bit, concerning to share, something that you're struggling with someone inside the company. So her and her insights and her coaching, it'll be interesting to hear what she says. And I'm sure something many of us can, take some food for thought from.
Well, in the IT area, it's been interesting because one of the jokes is that people they're very proficient in like technical aspects, hard skills, but they're really limited on the soft skill part. And the truth is, a lot of people think hard skills are the easiest things to learn. It's the soft skills that, how to direct people, how to manage people. Those are the hard things. One other thing I really want to add about Mary, she and I talk about getting young women involved in technology and leadership. And after the interview, I put her in contact with a young friend of my son's who's looking for a job. And she has been the most amazing mentor to her. So I can't tell you. This has happened a few times with people I've interviewed. I've put them in touch with young people. And it's been really exciting to see how passionate most of these women are about reaching a hand back. One of those theories about leaning back and helping someone up versus stepping on them. And they're all reaching a hand back. So I love that about all the women that we've been interviewing. But Mary especially has shown that to me.
Well, I can't wait for you to roll this because I'm thinking maybe I can get a little coaching in just by listening to your interviews.
There you go. All right. Well, enjoy Mary. She's a great interview, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay. Hi, everybody. I have Mary Patry, who is a founder of IT Effectivity. She is the executive advisor and coach to CIOs. I found Mary through one of the partners at our company that really has worked with you in the past. And I thought this was a really great opportunity to talk to you about it. So we had a pre-conversation. So tell me a little bit about your path to becoming an advisor to CIOs.
Sure. The journey really started a very long time ago when I first started in IT in 1977. Having been the first woman in IT, as you can imagine, some of the confrontations or actually conflicts that I had as being the only woman in the department.
Yeah.
I swiftly found my spot in the concentration and the focus on process improvements in the department. That was pre the day of ITSM. Really was really bringing to the table change management, problem management, those very important skills.
Yeah.
So throughout my career, I recognized the focus on the process side and the people side was going to be very critical to my success. So when I left corporate America to start consulting in 2013, I was invited to be an executive coach as part of the CIO Executive Council. I'd been a CIO a few times myself and had really focused on the leadership aspect of the IT department. So I fell into coaching while consulting and soon realized that's where my passion lied, was working with CIOs, being that sounding board, that safe harbor where they could talk through their challenges. Because let's face it, a CIO role is a pretty lonely position.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a lot of people you can be authentic with and show your vulnerabilities without some level of risk.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, I went and got my certification as an executive coach.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a certification involved in that. That's great.
It's a very strenuous certification. It took 3 years to get through all of the classwork as well as all of the certification work. It's quite rigorous.
Wow. Well, that's great. So I caught a little discussion about the process and where you found success in IT by understanding the process. And I know that you and I have had talks about the soft skills of leadership versus technical skills, and I think that's a role that women are uniquely qualified to actually address. Is we can get the technical part, the hard skills as it was, but talk to me a little bit about the soft skills, because I really feel like that's a hole that we really are qualified to fill.
Well, let's start with the reality that about 19%, as measured in 2019, of women are in executive leadership roles, which is a really pretty small number. So that means there's a whole lot of male colleagues to help out a bit. And though women are, and you would think they would be uniquely positioned to have the soft skills, we cannot assume that all women have the ability to, their challenges are different. It's more in finding their voice, as well as to be able to stand up to the table, with usually a predominantly male board and executive team. So there's a little different focus when I work with women, because I do work with women as much as I do men. But when working with CIOs in general, it's really helping them very specifically on one is finding their way to move from an operational CIO to an executive level, innovative, really having a true seat at the table. There's different things that we will look at. And the types of CIOs that I most often work with are new CIOs or CIOs that have taken on a new role. And one of the ones that is when they have a new boss, there's, navigating the changes in the landscape, as well as those CIOs that are looking to make a change where they might want to leave their current position. And so I end up helping them to discover the type of a company that they would be most happy in and successful in. So really that's the stratosphere of the CIOs. How I help CIOs in another way that I find to be an incredibly amount of fun is working with them with their direct reports. a lot of times a successor. Every CIO needs a successor. You would be amazed at the number of CIOs that do not have a successor. So helping them to groom their successor. They know what to do to develop them for the most part. They might not have the time. And also, it ends up being where it's a different conversation because of how tightly linked they are to the individual. So that's another area that I help CIOs and then the third way I help CIOs is in team development. I have a program that is targeted to middle managers. And Jean, if there's a place where we need to invest now is in the middle managers, because most of them have been uplifted from a very heavy technical role, have not had any kind of training at all, or mentoring or even role modeling is what it means to be a leader of people. That is a program I put in place 3 years ago, and I'm telling you, it is so rewarding, personally rewarding to myself and to my customers to have their members go through that.
Talk to me about what's so rewarding about the middle managers. Is it the diversity? Is it the group that you're working with? Or is it just the skills that you're able to flex?
All of the above.
Okay.
And because they are so eager. They're eager. When I'm working with the CIOs, it's an advisory capacity. It's a sounding board. They're for the most part, unless they're in trouble, looking for major change. And the next layer down, the direct reports of the CIO that's a whole lot of different kind of fun because they're ready to be groomed. But when I'm working with the middle managers and their ability to start having a common language, starting to support each other as a team and recognizing the value and the power of working as a team, that's why it's so rewarding, to watch that. And the CIOs love it because they start hearing that common language and they start seeing and realizing. It's really hard to quantify the success there. It's very qualifiable by how the CIO, feels about the change in the team.
Yeah.
And then a fourth leg of that stool is a women's program that I just brought to the table this year that I'm extraordinarily passionate about. And it's a women's mastermind program. It's not a training program. It's not a leadership development program. As you said earlier, women have the innate skills for the most part on leadership. In this mastermind program, it is a program where a small group of women come together in a very intimate virtual setting of supporting each other, sharing each other's challenges, and tackling topics that are of interest to them. That was my 2020 gratitude, is that the execution of that pilot program, and I'm excited about 2021, where I hope to bring to the table a couple of cohorts of that.
This is pretty cool. I mean, I'm really excited about all the different programs you're doing and all the different levels that you're working with. And that's really exciting because I feel like, and we talked about this a little bit, I feel like there's not enough women in the middle manager role to move up. And what's your point of view on that? What's your thought on what's the future for those? And I'm focused on women, but I'm asking in general.
It's okay with me to focus a little bit on women here. Coming out of college, there's about a 50% split of people that were actually in a computer science program, and that's measured by the National Center for Women in Technology. Unfortunately, by the time they hit a middle manager role, there is less than 20%.
Right.
And that number is being severely impacted this year because of COVID.
Wow. A
good number of the clients that I have are losing women because of the pressing need for them to be moms first.
Right.
You and I grew up in IT. We knew how hard it was.
Right.
It was really hard balancing the needs of, especially since you and I both worked in infrastructure, which is a rarity for women.
Right.
And so when you start looking about the 24/7 responsibility, and then you measuring that against being a mom and a wife, it's some really hard choices a lot of people have to make, is that I don't know if I can do both. And if they don't have a really strong support system, thank God I had my parents. We won't even talk about the lack of support I got from my husband, who I'm no longer married to. But it just, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my parents' support, because, you can't be on call and having to go in the middle of the night when you have little kids at home.
Yeah.
And even if you're in the application side of the house, it is it's typically expected that you work a long day.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. So for the future, you're seeing them dropping down because they just can't give that time. I feel like I was lucky because I was in a situation where I worked from home most of the time. I had to go to client sites periodically, but I worked from home, and my husband has his own business local. So we balanced that out. But you're right. It was an enormous stress. And I don't know how the moms are doing it these days. And that's a shame that we're losing so many women. If somebody wanted to, I've been having a lot of young women reach out to me lately. And I was thinking about this. They have a lot of different backgrounds, but I feel like they could still be involved in technology without actually having a technical background. What's your thoughts on that? I think that's where we lose women thinking, oh, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at technical stuff. But I feel like, no, we need everybody in technology. Everybody has to be part of it. What's your thought about that for young women?
Absolutely. When I was a CIO up in the New England area, I was honored to be invited to be the sponsor for a program of young women in high school. And that, I think, is one of the things that we need to foster more is and it's not just in STEM, and STEM is awesome though, but it's really in engaging women,
right,
young women, in the application of various aspects of technology. It's not just the heavy technical arena. And I believe that we market it, I think over the years we've had an arrogance about marketing technology as being so technical. There are so many other diverse areas of IT. On the process management side, I find women to be particularly good at the process management, the rigor, the diligence, and the follow through that's needed there. Security, I'm seeing a lot of women being very successful in the security arena because of those same traits, that attention to detail, the diligence that is needed. Really making sure that all of the processes and the rules are, doing what they are intended to do.
Yeah.
And even on the infrastructure side, there is no reason a woman cannot be exposed to it. I was working with a client last year on recruiting for a female into their infrastructure group. They had no female at all in a department of about 30 men. And they really wanted to bring some women into the team. And so we looked at the way they were searching. Let's face it, men hire in their own image. They don't do it. It's a biased, unconscious bias.
Yeah.
There's an expectation. And weirdly, even the females that was on the hiring panel was like, oh, she's got children. Wait a minute here, guys, type of thing. So there's a lot of things that need to be done on the business side that the potential worker can't handle. They can't fix that. It's the way we write job descriptions. It's the expectations of the job, and really articulating it in a way, because women are going to be more apt to want all the boxes checked before they'll apply, as opposed to saying, maybe I can do that. So that's where I believe that, people like you and I who are mentors to young women can help them can help them to realize they can do it by role models. And I believe one of the things I haven't done a good enough job on in the past, and I intend to fix, is demonstrate there are women like you and I that are role models.
That's why I have the podcast. That's why I interview people like you.
And I love that about it.
Yeah. I do have one other. I have two different young women, recent graduates of college. One is in environmental studies, and the other one in human rights. And I'm thinking, they both they bring so much smartness to it. And I'm trying to think of how can they get inserted into the technical fields. I think there's a lot of opportunities there, but I'm just kind of bouncing this off you, Mary, because I think it's an interesting concept. And I think a lot of young people are really interested in these concepts, both human rights and environmental studies. Do you have any thoughts on that, or any companies that you were thinking about that might be something that I could tell them they could still follow their passion and be involved in technology?
I would need to know a little bit more about them and where their skills and interests lies. Right off the top of my head, I don't have any company per se, but I can say that I would want to talk to them. If I was talking to them, I would be talking about that. Where are they? How are they showing up? Where are they networking? Who are they hanging out with? As well as maybe to do a couple little assessments of where their skills and strengths lies and how it could translate into IT. I don't get to work with a lot of younger IT professionals, but when I do have a client right now that has me coaching a couple of teams of high potential, which is, oh my God, fun. I've actually done, assessments with them as to where their strengths lie, as to how, what kind of a trajectory, a path that they can choose. Because let's face it, there is an endless number of paths within IT someone just starting out can take, and it really having that guidance. And unfortunately, I don't find that most corporations have the HR bench strength. It's, they're generalists, they're great people, they work really hard, but their job isn't really to help an individual to grow in the career.
Right.
That is incumbent on the manager. And unfortunately, a lot of times, most of the time, the manager is not prepared to help the employees to find their path either.
Yeah.
But I believe that with the identification of that need, we can make some headway. But back to these young women, I am more than happy for you to have them give me a buzz if you'd like me to talk to them.
Oh, I will. No, because I actually interviewed one on the podcast with her dad, but yeah, and another young woman who's been reaching out to me. And I just think, but my whole thing is not just these two, but I will put them in touch with you. But it's really just about how do young people take their passion of what they're focused on and translate it to IT. And I keep saying to them, follow your passion, just learn how to build the parameters and the requirements around there, and then start looking for companies that support that concept.
Yeah.
And then you can find your way to the IT, because I think everything's going to be app driven, as far as I can tell, moving forward. So it's good to understand how it works so you can assist with putting a program into place.
Well, even if you don't intend to be an app developer, to understand the way computing works, to understand, it's a little bit of a price of entry to understand the basic concept of computing. So if these individuals have never taken any kind of computer science classes, I would encourage them to do so.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's a lot of new technology that is coming into play, not new technology, but new areas of technology that didn't even exist a number of years ago, such as user design, UX. And you think, and when you start looking at app development, that front end interface of understanding the personas of the end user would be an incredibly important area that I believe women can play a strong role in. Here in Arizona, we have a group. It's a group that was founded as a kind of a groundswell, but now it's a huge group with maybe 800-900 members called UX and AZ. And it's where people with like mind come together to talk about UX and all the development and training and opportunities. A lot of managers that I know use that organization to find people to work for them. And a lot of people that are members use it to support each other in their growth. So it's really seeking out those opportunities, to be exposed to those opportunities.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Mary, I like to wrap up your passion in coaching everybody with my passion, which is how to get more women into IT. So I think we had a very good discussion about how to marry those two.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was really a lot of fun talking with you.
Hey, Lois, I am so excited to talk. I have notes everywhere. I'm so excited to talk to you about this interview.
That was such a refreshing interview. She was so great. I was thinking, man, how do I get to have her as my coach? Because she was just so insightful.
Me too, for sure. Well, I'm going to start and pick something that she said out of the very middle of the interview, which I don't usually do. I'm such a sequential person, but it stood out to me when she started giving some of the stats about not enough women to be able to move up, and that, if the split out of school is 50-50 male and women, by the time you get to mid-manager it's less than 20, and then we're losing more to COVID, etc. And it just, those stats just really struck me, especially because I don't think I notice them, being a woman going up through my career.
Well, and it's startling, and it's also, you hear so many women leaving the workforce because of the challenges that we're having right now. But I think we have to probably even double down our efforts now as we think about teams and leadership teams, especially because the skill sets, I think she talked about some of the skill sets that women bring. It is so important for, a highly effective leadership team to have both men and women, the diversity, because they will rely on each other or bring those different talents to that leadership team that you need. it just brings so much value to the organization. And I think now's the time as we, come out of this, kind of get back to more of a normal course of business. I think those, enterprises, corporations really need to take special note and say, okay, now how do we bring that diversity into our leadership team to really play off those skills?
Yeah, I love that Mary's message was really like a can do it, right? Message was what she was saying. And I also felt it touched me very personally because I thought, we have great resources. Every one of us knows of great women resources in particular, but great resources that need encouragement and at times air cover. So if you have somebody that's affected in this way, they're taking care of stay at home kids. I mean, there's just extra stresses on them. Sometimes they do need air cover. And it also struck me that she said that most companies lack, and I think it's true, most companies lack HR bench strength to be able to not only help women, give them the air cover or to give our people the air cover, but to develop them, individually to be successful in the organization, and that it's really incumbent on the managers, and the managers aren't prepared.
Yeah, and not every leader or manager has that skill set, right, to mentor and coach. And I think the more that companies can have mentoring programs or coaching programs within their organization, especially women for women, but even, men who really have the passion to ensure that the women in the organization have an opportunity to really thrive. I think that coaching, sometimes it's even, I think, better when you have a relationship with someone. You can talk to someone openly, right, and know it's not part of your performance appraisal, it's not part of your leadership chain, but just, a way to be able to bounce ideas and have that kind of safety to bring things up. I think it's very important, even, especially now.
Yeah, it's very much a part of how generally women are wired. I think, we're wired to bounce stuff out there and blurt maybe it out in a safe place so that we can get ourselves together, for the way that we want to deliver the message professionally. And I felt like all of that just made me think a little bit, on my own personal journey about how you're focused. You're so focused in your in a large part of your career at proving your credentials and making it, to the next place in your career and in an organization. And at a certain point in time, you get to the point where you're in a position to be the voice that advocates for others on your team, or in your organization. And that has to be at times even at the expense of, I don't say at the expense of your own personal capital, but those things can be at odds. And if you're going to advocate for a position that benefits others, you might have to, burn your own political capital or rock the boat a little bit, to be able to do that where, it's not all for your own personal benefits.
Well, I think we can probably all think of individuals that we may know that are great male leaders who lead from the front, right? They're charging up the hill. There might be casualties along the side, but they're driving to get things done. And it's great. I think so many women are more of that, like you said, supportive or almost leading from the back, right? They're kind of making sure everybody's getting up the hill. They're, coaching their, and they might be that unsung hero, but I think it challenges all of us to say, in some cases you do need to play a role in front and you need to, kind of get your voice or your actions out there. But I think also this is where it comes to the diversity of, I think if we can ensure that the company recognizes when a team is doing well, it's because it's probably led by a woman, right? If they're doing well, maybe it's just because they really have that solid foundation, and let's really encourage those strengths.
Yeah, and you do get to a point where it should be okay to rock the boat because folks recognize that that you're an all around professional person, and that there's something there's some reason you're not rocking the boat for no reason, but there's something that's important that needs to be addressed, and
hopefully not being told you were emotional.
Yeah. It's not
I think we've all been there.
Oh, amen to that. That's so funny. Oh my gosh, you made me even forget what my next what the next thing was that I thought was so cool about this interview. Okay, I know what it was because I'm a bit of an HR geek. There was a point where Mary actually talked about, getting into technology without the IT background, right? And do I relate to that? Because I do not have an IT background. My background is all HR. And it also made me think that in HR, the reverse happens. People, fold into leading HR that are CFOs or that are legal folks because all the compliance, comp and ben stuff. So it happens all the way around. And HR in particular in an organization is supposed to be thinking about that with mobility and succession planning. And it plays right into her early comments about the number of CIOs or CXOs, right? Whatever that lead role is, who don't have a successor, and they're not actually coaching and mentoring and bringing a successor to the table. And that's a big faux pas, right? for all of them.
Very much, because of course we all know if we want to move forward, you need to have your successor behind you. But I thought what is encouraging about that is I think it opens up the doors to more opportunities. Or I hope we all think about not just looking forward or ahead in whatever career path you're in, but also look at adjacent career paths or look at areas that you're interacting with, because it may be you can take a sidestep or take a look at another, path. Like me, I've never been in HR, but, maybe because I've worked in leadership for a while, you could have a role in HR and really make a really positive impact, or vice versa. So I think if anything, that encourages us to, when you think about your backup or succession planning, look for people who are, who could be from outside of the organization to be brought into that function, and they may just really bring a different point of view.
Yeah, and I think that ties to some of her last points, right? In the very end, she was talking a lot about skills and seeking skills that would help you understand digital or understand IT. And I think she called out UX personas. And, my first thought was, ew. That's really techie. But then I thought, as an HR person, like, how is that any different than the personas that I think about from an HR process perspective, or the personas that org change management folks look at when they're thinking about the impact of change and driving change in an organization? It really isn't any different. And being able to recognize that a skill that we pick up from any one of those dimensions becomes so portable and can be applied through very different lenses, it took the ew away.
Well, maybe, Julie, it's just that you're actually turning into a technical geek and you just don't even really know it. That's what I think is happening. We've been doing these for a while now, and I swear every time we talk, there's a little bit more jargon that's coming up from you, Julie.
Oh, no.
Oh. No, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Come on.
I'm sure it is. It just makes me a more rounded person to even be able to see through the lens that others are seeing through, right? And maybe share a little bit the lens that I think about, which does start with things like ew and...
That's a new one. Yeah. We'll have to look in the IT jargon there to see if that is a good one. But I'm so glad that Jeannie had this interview, and a great person to connect with. And I think she even mentioned she was able to connect some of her folks in her family or in her personal, to be mentored. So I think an inspiration for all of us to do more mentoring and kind of help bring some of the folks along. So thanks. I'm glad Jeannie got that together for us.
I actually feel like I got couch time out of that interview with Mary myself personally. So I hope everybody else feels like they got their own little bit of couch time out of Jeannie's awesome interview. Thank you, Mary. And thanks, Jeannie.
Yep. Thank you, Jeannie. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Julie and Lois. And my work here is done, Julie, for you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on ISG Digital Dish. If you like our podcast, subscribe and please rate and review us. Thanks.